Having toured as many tea processing centers as possible, I turned my attention on Ceylon Tea Museum. That should be the best place to see the old machinery used and discarded by tea factories in country. Having verified the location of the museum situated at Hantane Estate, I first went to the capital city of central province of Sri Lanka called Kandy. On reaching Kandy, I turned towards Bogambara Prison, Bogambara Stadium and went towards Kandy General Hospital Junction, from where I took the Hantane Road towards Uduvela. The climb from Kandy to Hantane Estate, though a rough, curvy road, I had to carefully follow the small signboards at every junction along the 3-kilometer road from the city limit. The whole Hantane tea factory, which has been converted as the Ceylon Tea Museum, came to a sudden view. It was bright and sunny Sunday morning, and we had easy access to the museum since I had made prior arrangements with the manager, Mr. I.P. Wickremanayake, for my visit. The road nearer to the building has been well maintained and provides the museum with ample parking space. Before taking us to various sections of the museum, Mr. Wickremanayake gave me a detailed account of how the idea of the tea museum originated by providing some interesting information on its founders. It was Sri Lanka Tea Board along with the Planters Association which took the proposal across to a successful conclusion. After a historic meeting held at SLTB under the leadership of its chairman Mr. C.S. Ratnasiri on 12th May 1997, a group of dedicated professionals of the Ceylon tea industry resolved to go ahead with the project. Subsequently, the Ceylon Tea Museum was incorporated under the Companies Act on 8th January 1998. Unlike in developed countries, many historical figures in Sri Lanka go unnoticed even locally for whatever great work they might have accomplished in their lifetime. I would therefore mention a few names who I understand have taken a lead role in creating this historical masterpiece. Mrs. C.S. Ratnasiri, S.K. Senivaratna, Chris Dasanayake, H.D. Elvis, M.D. Zoiza, A. Gunasekara, R. Ilangaratna, R. Maligaspe, A. Medonza, and Derek Samarasinghe, among many others. The first board of directors of the CTM unanimously decided that the Hantane Tea Factory as its most perfect location to house the museum due to several reasons. Reason number one being Hantane lies just outside historical capital city of Kandy, where most tourists to Sri Lanka never fail to include it as part of their tour itinerary. The factory at the time belonged to Janatha Estates Development Board JEDB with Mr. Dhanasiri S. Daluwate as its chairman. Honorable Ratnasiri Wickremanayake, the then Prime Minister and the chairman JEDB, readily released the factory to form the world's first ever and historical tea museum. However, the organizing, management and maintenance of the museum was an uphill task due to lack of funds and maybe lack of enthusiasm from planters and or plantation companies in general. Mr. S.K. Senivaratna, Secretary of the PA, went around numerous estates requesting donations of old machinery, books and records for the museum with limited success. He is considered the key architect who brought the museum to its present standard, practically from scratch. On 1st November 1997, Mr. D. Madugala took charge as manager of the museum. The first item of machinery which attracted my attention, one of the oldest hand-operated Walker's Little Giant tea roller, manufactured in 1880 by John Walker. This item has been donated by Mr. Deepal De Silva of Yakatuva Estate in Ambalangoda, where this roller was discovered. I was delighted to stumble upon a set of truly monumental masterpieces of the past, innovated with ingenuity and perseverance by some of the world's greatest inventors of original tea factory machinery. The next oldest item I was fortunate to look at was an old hot bulb engine manufactured in 1880 by Ruston and Hornsby, England. I saw an old water-driven Pelton used to operate some factory machinery such as low-capacity rollers and shifters and to produce some electricity for lighting the factory building and operate shifting room fans. Water which comes from a higher elevation passes through the cup wheel inside the Pelton to turn the shaft. If the load is heavy requiring more power, an engine was used to produce the required power. The first tea dryer to be used in Ceylon was the Venetian dryer manufactured by W&J Jackson. As usual, I turned to my brother to verify the difference between the dryers used then versus the modern fully automated dryers. Pointing at the two sections of the old dryer on display, he summarized it as a dryer consists of two parts, namely the heater section and the drying section. which are separated by a wall to prevent smoke and ash dust contaminating tea during the drying process. The heater section is where firewood or oil fuel is used to heat up the tube through which cold air is drawn, which in turn gets heated. This heated air dries the wet tea in the firing chamber when it is sent through with the help of a fan. The old dryer in the photo is called a chain dryer or bell dryer. There are 5 sets of trays and a feeding tray on the top. Wet fermented tea is manually spread on the top of the feeding tray and is manually tilted for it to fall on the second tray, and again some more fermented tea is spread on the top tray and the hood closed. The bottom trays one by one will tilt and a dry tea will come out from the dryer at the bottom after about 20 to 22 minutes. Every time the second tray is empty, the top tray tea will be tilted manually and fresh wet tea is spread on the top tray. The output of this dryer is only about 50 pounds per hour. These were replaced by 3-stage and 2-stage endless chain pressure (ECP) dryers, and later by more advanced fluid bed dryers. I understand the largest single tea bush was grown at Dhanasiri Estate, Mathura. An old black and white photograph was in display at the museum. A group of 26 tea pluckers stand surrounding the bush holding their outstretched hands. One of the greatest deeds of the management of this museum is the relocation of the James Taylor Tea Museum to the first floor of this building, giving it its rightful place. Looking at the items used by the father of Ceylon tea, I was taken back 150 years into the past. Indeed, I was fascinated to see the first roller-cum dryer used by James Taylor in 1870, a humble cauldron which is called tachi, made of cast iron. It shows how far the industry has evolved today after a truly humble beginning. Some of the items used by James Taylor being displayed are 2 wheels from his cart, tobacco pipe, hand axe, walking stick, wire nails, notebooks, record books, and even a club used to scare away animal and human enemies. Some early planters have used this menacing stick while supervising their workers, maybe giving them a cold message of warning. Before the trap system was introduced to wither green leaf, all tea factories used jute or nylon, neatly fixed on tat poles and tightly fastened by wires. I remember jute used in the olden days were imported from East India, which later became Bangladesh. The word tat derived from tattu in Tamil, meaning a flat plate. Here tat is the entire in the structure comprising of jute or nylon fastened by wire to the wooden pole. Tats are normally located at the top floors of the factory to receive fresh air for proper weathering. Once leaf is withered, it is fed through tubes or chutes directly into rollers which are much heavier, located in the ground floor. Perhaps the present generation may be unaware that green leaf was transported from the field in high elevation direct to the factory using aerial wire chutes. I have seen them in my childhood, where leaf used to go down from the top of a hill direct to the factory right below. This is an old high tension wire chute in the picture used for such a purpose in the past. It's called a winch. This method cannot be seen in the plantations today. Considerable amount of money must have been saved in transportation costs by this method. Though time did not allow me to spend more time exploring the other machinery on display, I really admired a fitting tribute to the museum, the replica of Imbulpitiya Tea Factory in Navalapitiya donated by the Chairman of Colombo Commercial Company Limited. The model of the factory has been built by the company's apprentices using equipment provided by the company. My special thanks and appreciation to the museum manager, Mr. Wickremanayake, for his assistance in making my visit a success.